It's Fundamentals of Car Audio time, brought to you by D&F Tool Drawer. That's right, the really cool place you can go to find tools. Yes. Oh, let's head over to the laptop, shall we? Summing. Today we're going to talk to you about what?
Summing.
Good call.
I read it.
Summing is the blending of multiple signals to create one complete signal. Now, we're just going to generalize what summing is. We're not going to talk about all the headaches that can get involved in summing. We're just going to help you understand what summing is because it's a word that we throw out quite frequently. And I know a lot of you guys are out there and you're like, Skittles. They both start with S. To understand summing, you first must understand what each speaker does. Tweeters produce high frequencies from instruments such as voice, piano, electric guitars, and cymbals. Frequency range between 3,000 and 22,000 and higher hertz. Mid-range, or middlers now, produce the middle frequencies from instruments such as snare drums, organs, electric guitars, and a tenor sax. Frequency range is around 300 hertz to 22,000 hertz. Keep in mind this is generalization. Obviously plus or minus would be involved here. Mid-range / mid-bass produce the lower mid and mid-bass frequencies from instruments such as kick drums, pianos, bass guitars, tenor, voice. Frequency range could be anywhere between 50 hertz to 3,000 hertz or higher. Sweetwater produces this chart here that you can download, and what this is designed to do is across the bottom you can see the frequency and then the instrument and where they fall within that frequency. This is a really nice chart to have access to. We have one copy of it on the wall over here, because when you're tuning your car and you're like, I just can't seem to get this instrument to sound good, to refer to this chart and figure out where it falls into your graph, as far as like if you're looking at an RTA of sound playing in your car, if there's a hole there and that's where that particular instrument is designed to be played, then you can kind of get an idea of what you're going to need to do to fix it. But moving back to summing, you will need some form of summing device. There are three basic types: multi-channel high to low level adapters, such as an LC7i, a WaveTech, Kicker makes one. A lot of companies make these. Some form of DSP or EQ with multiple channels of input. So for example, you want, which we'll get to in a minute, you'll understand. As well as some specialty amplifiers have summing built into them as well. Usually those amplifiers are going to have DSPs built into them, but not all of them do. In the sense of audio control, always has two channels of summing capability on their front channels. You have high in and then you have front in. Make sure you have enough channels to do all your summing, and that's where I was getting at. Count your speakers to get the basic idea of how many channels you have. Best is to test all your channels to get the most accurate count. What that basically means is that if you sit in a car and there's a set of tweeters, there's a set of mid-range, there's rear, and there's sub, that could be 7 channels. It could also just be 5 channels, depending on if the front tweeter and front mid are connected to the same wiring. If you have a car that has a factory amplifier in it, the likelihood of them being their own channel is greatly increased as opposed to if your car just has a basic radio in it. For example, today we did a Honda Accord base model where the 6.5 and the tweeter run parallel with one another. However, if the car would have been a premium sound system, it would have looked the same. However, each driver would have had their own channel on the amplifier. We would have needed more channels to do summing in that car than we would have not. This is what summing is going to look like with a device like the LC7i. You're going to bring your main tweeter into your main input. You'll bring your mid-range in. You'll bring your mid-bass or subwoofer in, depending on what type of system and how big it is. You're going to use the level control to do your mixing, because depending on how the factory's volume is playing those particular drivers, you may need to go in there and blend them together. Turn one up, turn one down, that kind of thing. And you can do that with the level controls. And then it's going to output to 2-channel audio and give you the highest frequency response that is playing and the lowest frequency response of the combined total. It can't give you anything extra, but it will give you the total of the two. In this case, we had 22,000 hertz. The tweeter was playing all the way up to on the high side, and the mid bass was playing down to 60 hertz. That will give us a combined total that we can then go into our amplifier of 22,000 hertz down to 60 hertz. I tried to color code it to make it look, you know, how this is happening. And that's about it. And that, my guys, is summing.